All right, we're ready.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, everyone. So, hello and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for a really exciting event. I'm so excited to be kicking us off today. We have a jam-packed agenda, so I'll go ahead and introduce our all-star cast. All right, in order of appearance today, I'm welcoming Simon Chadwick from KBR Consulting, our very own Greg Stuckey, as well as Dave Lundell, and another special guest, Lucy Davison. Welcome, and welcome to all our participants. All right, today's jam-packed agenda. We'll start off with Simon, then Greg, then Dave and Lucy with really exciting topics. I will add that if you stay to the end, we have a really exciting reveal. So I highly encourage it. Oh,
Well,
I'll pause here. Just really quickly, along the way, please ask us questions anytime. This question box that you'll see if you just hover down to the bottom, you will get to see there an opportunity to ask your questions. So if you have questions for the speakers, if you have thoughts and comments along the way, again, jam-packed agenda, we want to hear your thoughts. You could ask speakers a specific question, or if you have some tech issues, go ahead and drop us a line. Okay, and with that, let's kick it off.
well, thank you, Carrie. And it's wonderful to have everybody here. I see in the box that we've got a jam-packed room, which is great. So I want to start off today by painting a canvas, if you like, and posing a couple of questions. The canvas is really what has changed in our world over the last few years. What are the key changes, the key market shifts that are really important now as we try and understand research, insight, particularly innovation. So I'm going to go back in time to January the 31st, 2020, the day the world changed. Why did it change? Because that was the day that the United States officially declared a healthcare crisis, which we came to know as COVID. All of a sudden, things changed. We were now facing lockdowns. We were facing travel restrictions. None of us really knew what was happening. But increasingly important was, in the business sense at least, all those models we relied upon for understanding and predicting consumer behavior no longer worked. And everything went to hell in corporate America. Suddenly, senior managements were shouting, "What's happening? What's happening? Get me answers now. I need to know." And suddenly they were aware of this thing called consumer insights in their organizations. And they were saying, "Get those people to tell me what's happening." And they wanted it so fast that many consumer insights functions started to invest in technology that would enable them to ask questions and get answers in hours. Once they'd actually got a handle on what was happening, then the question went to, well, what's going to happen? So we went from insight to foresight. And then once scenarios had been built of what was going to happen, the question was, how are we going to compete? And because of this line of questioning, things started happening in the world of insights that we'd been hoping for years. So, for example, today, according to the ARF, More than 50% of consumer insights projects are actually insourced. Pre-pandemic, that was 37%. These are the types of projects that are validatory, that are very quick, or that are things like copy tests, things that can be done using research technology. In the last decade, over $40 billion has been invested in research and analytics technology. 22 billion of that in the last 3 years alone. All of that has been going into how to technology as to how to ask questions and get answers really quickly, whether through first-party data or zero-party data or third-party data. Work that's been done by the Global Research Business Network, which is a network of all the associations around the world, is showing right now that as a result of being asked to provide foresight and to say how we're going to compete in the future, somehow I'm what's that? The business impact of insights functions has increased dramatically. The impact that insights are having on decision making in major corporations is much bigger than it was pre-pandemic. Budgets are increasingly now divided between budgeting for what we do on our own systems, insourcing, new research innovations, experimentation, and strategic initiatives. And those strategic initiatives are very much more important, very much more salient than they were just 3 years ago. So research, the lesson learned, we hope, was research can no longer just be validatory. It can no longer be rearview mirror. It has to be forward-looking. It has to be in the business of scenario planning. That means also it has actual meaning for new technologies. So it means also that generative AI, based solely on past behavior, will guarantee failure as a strategic tool. It also shows us, and I hope this is a lesson really learned, that behavioral models are not static. They are changeable. Why? Because consumer behavior in the face of change especially is not rational. So how can we help leaders who need to envision the future and need to be prepared for that future? How can we help them do that and achieve competitive advantage? We have to reimagine what we do so that they can reimagine what they may do. We have to reinvent what we do so they may reinvent what they need to do in the face of change. So scenario planning now, foresight, is right at the center of what CI functions do. Scenario planning, generically speaking, means taking data from all around, whether it be cultural, demographic, generational, whether it be social listening or transitional or totally exogenous. For example, as in war breaking out across the Atlantic or in the Middle East or wherever. And building scenarios utilizing those data into plans as to what to do when such a scenario might occur. There is, however, one problem with this. Consumers are not inherently rational in their decision making. So if that's the case, how on earth are we expected to scenario plan for that? And to answer that question, I am going to turn to Greg Stuckey. Greg.
Thanks, Simon. That's actually a fantastic question. How do we scenario plan for that? So if you have got your fingers ready on the keyboard, go ahead and throw some possible ideas within the chat, within the Q&A section of the session here. So one of the challenges we all have is really understanding if we're going to be able to forecast, if we're going to be able to scenario plan, what are some of the most foundational elements that we have to really understand and focus on in order to be able to predict what people are going to do, or how we might be able to account for that perceived irrationality. Well, the key is going to be here really focusing on key moments in people's lives and understanding how those moments shift and change. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is the mystery of this magical thing called the moment, and why do moments matter? So for the next few minutes, I want you to act and think like a product visionary. I want you to reimagine how you approach innovation. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a visionary whose task it is to innovate the most popular food in the world, pizza, right? Put yourself in those shoes. I want you to stop thinking, though, about who is eating the pizza, what kind of pizza they eat, or even how much they like pizza. Instead, I want you to focus not on the person or the product. I want you to focus on behavior. By focusing on what's really influencing a person's behavior, you're going to learn a different way to approach your innovation. So to truly understand behavior, you need to focus on the one aspect that exerts the most influence on a person's behavior, and that's the moment. To truly reimagine your innovation approach, you have to start somewhere different. You need to be able to start at the source where all of our behaviors are triggered, and that's the moment in which you're in. When you discover moments which are behaviorally connected to eating pizza, you're going to change your approach to innovation. Okay. So let's take a look at Joshua. Just knowing Joshua here loves pizza, it doesn't really help us a lot with our innovation, because contrary to popular belief, people are really not the best starting point for innovation. People are inherently irrational, like Simon was saying, and we're not really in control of our own behavior as much as we like to think we are. In reality, if we really want to understand Joshua's behavior as it relates to pizza, we need to focus on the types of moments that Joshua is in. Now, focusing on the moment requires us to look at three simple elements, right? The first element is the context of the occasion, which in this case is the setting in which Joshua is eating his pizza. So here he's walking from the living room back to the kitchen to get a drink while his cat Sadie is ready to pounce, right? Maybe because she hears the can opener going in the kitchen, right? Second, we need to understand Joshua's internal needs. These are the things that matter to him personally at this moment. They're his internal concerns, his goals, his ideals that are all top of mind at this very moment in time. And the third are his motivators, these external motivators. And these are all the cues and signals in the environment around him, and even from the product itself, which are motivating behavior. So these can be both explicit, right? Those are the ones that maybe he's actively thinking about, maybe like the taste or the temperature of the pizza, but they also can be the subconscious cues. And these are perhaps the most important ones we often overlook. And maybe that's like the sixth sense that Sadie's behind him, and he might behave in a different way than we might think is rational because he's operating with those subconscious cues. But what happens if one of the elements of the moment changes? For instance, what if Joshua was eating the same pizza in the car with his dog, Max, who, by the way, is absolutely not begging, right? So this change in context is going to change Joshua's internal needs. They're going to change his external motivators, which are impacting his behavior. So changing the context is going to dramatically impact how Joshua perceives and acts in the situation. It's going to affect how much he likes the pizza, even what attributes of the pizza he's more aware of or more critical of. So for instance, maybe in the car, he's going to be more aware of how greasy his fingers are because he knows he gets in trouble for making the seats messy, or maybe he's one of those kids that does it just to be contrary, right? Or maybe he's developing a cunning plan to sneak a piece of pepperoni to Max, right? The context affects choices, preferences, brand associations, really everything else. And by changing your foundation from a focus on the person, focusing on Joshua as a person, to focusing on the moment that Joshua is in, changes how you are going to approach innovation. It's going to help you reimagine your innovation process, right? Now, if you're going to reimagine your innovation process, you're also going to have to reinvent your methods and the techniques that you use. So now you're going to move from taking a classic approach, if you will, all the types of research that you used to do pre-January 31st that you thought worked really, really well, and you're going to have to reimagine them a little bit. You're going to have to ask yourself, how do I incorporate things like the moments into the research techniques I do? Because not all research just suddenly stopped being efficient, but how we approach the research needs a little reinvention. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of really simple ways, very, very simple, practical ways that we can get into moments or get moments into our research. And I'm also going to give you a couple ideas about maybe where you could spark some new ideas to reinvent things on your own. All right. The first are two really simple, practical ideas. One is probably my favorite, which is simple storytelling. To get a person, when you're doing research, to write about a personal story so that they can personalize and empathize with the specific moment that you're trying to put them in, is going to bring to their brain all those surface subconscious cues and concerns that are important to them. So as they tell those stories, those memories, those emotions become top of mind, and they're going to have a really dramatic impact on your results. Now, the second is to do some type of priming. Priming, for instance, you can prime the competitive context of the brands being used, products being used. You could use concept work to prime people, but get people to think beyond what they're interacting with right there in front of them to the context in which they might encounter that particular product, whether in the store or whether at home or whether in advertising, whatever that situation may be. Right. A couple of new ideas. One way you can reimagine it is by thinking about situations maybe that the people have never been in before. So maybe you give them imagery, such as a static image here of people eating pizza on a beach. Maybe they've never thought of being in the beach or on the beach with a box of pizza. So putting them in a context they've never been in, you need to help them visualize that a little bit, help them storytell it. So putting some pictures, some graphics together, or maybe even a journey sequence together so that they can understand and imagine themselves in the future in that setting will also help you bring context and moments to life in your research. And then certainly any of the great technological tools that we have, from AR to VR to room imaging, et cetera, so forth, are all unique, valuable ways that you can put people in context and put them into a moment. And getting people in that moment is going to change the type of information you discover. You're going to see new influencers, which are really going to help you have more reliable behavioral data. You're going to uncover new insights, which are going to provide new relevant human truths. And you're going to discover new opportunities, new ways of thinking, which will result in a lot of new creative ideas for yourself as well. So as visionary product leaders, I want you to reimagine and reinvent your approach to innovation. Start with a moment rather than the person and all of the person elements as your foundation or demographic. Focus on the moment, the context, the needs, the internal motivators, the external motivators that are actually influencing person's day-to-day behavior. And I think you'll discover that maybe some of that irrationality that we perceive might not be so irrational at all. You might actually be able to predict it a little bit better than you thought you would. Then reinvent how you do innovation. Start by adding moments-based research and context into your existing methods, and then ask yourself, how else might I get in the moment in ways that will truly help me understand a person's behavior.
Great. That's fantastic, Greg. Thank you. When I was thinking about when you get in the moment, the other thing that comes to mind is it helps you have more empathy for
Oh,
people.
absolutely.
You know, it's such an important piece of, if you're going to be in the moment, discovering, you know, that empathy for what are people's concerns, what are they aspiring to do. Anyway, and this leads to really, once you discover how to get in the moment and the power of the moment itself, then it leads naturally to the question is, now, how do you use this information? How do you innovate to win the moment? And that's what I want to talk about here today as my topic. So I like to begin with something that Simon said, in that in these times of change and heightened consumer irrationality, consumer insights functions are being asked to generate insights for, you know, corporate strategy and scenario planning. I think this is really, really important change in the industry. So reimagining consumer research for strategy requires not just getting in a moment, but I think it needs about thinking differently about the information that you're generating into insights and how those insights feed into action. So to think different, I like to introduce you to a moments-based framework called the habit flywheel. And the habit flywheel includes 8 points of intervention around different moments where actions can be taken by an organization to disrupt or to nudge habitual behaviors. And this nudging and the disrupting is really key to creating the actions and the outcomes that you're trying to do through innovation. So these 8 points of innovation are, first, the routine, and how the routine that typically defines it, what it does, it defines the choice set often, you know, where a product is chosen. And that product, once it's chosen, it has signals designed into it as cues, as Greg was talking about, that communicate implicitly the benefits of what the product is all about. And then these signals and a product creates product experiences and a rewarding, or in the contrary, it could be a punishment if that product does not have a great experience, you know, and that either that reward or punishment, it actually builds or destroys and reinforces brand associations that lead to trust or distrust about the brand, which is essential to marketing activation, where messaging or the package design itself can trigger routines that lead back to choice amongst choice sets. So all of these sort of points of intervention have different moments that matter. You know, you have moments of need, you have moments of use, you have moments of brand impressions, and you have moments of marketing activation. So further, as a flywheel, these 8 points of intervention can serve different goals. One, to nudge the flywheel around and reinforce existing habits, and the other to disrupt or stop the flywheel from going around so a new behavior can be formed. Now, further today, what I want to be talking about is applying this habit flywheel framework to help us understand how to win by building behavioral momentum, making this flywheel go around and around for brands through actions inspired by insights across these 8 points of innovation. Further, I will be talking about how this sort of thinking leads to alignment in activities between the right side of this, which is product focused, and perhaps a product development or R&D sort of focus, and the left side, which is brand and marketing focus. And it is this alignment between the right side and the left side that leads to momentum. Now, alignment starts, I think, as about being strategic, knowing where to play and how to play to win. And in this moments-based framework, we start by asking some good questions to discover where to play. And where to play does not refer to what markets to target for the brand, but rather it refers to what moments to target. And this leads to more questions to discover how to play to win in those moments. So strategic thinking using this habit flywheel, this framework, starts in the upper right-hand quadrant, as I'm showing here on this slide, with the generation of 3 types of what I like to call foundational insights in response to questions that we ask about moments of need and routines and choice sets and benefits. And the first foundational insights come out of what I like to call as a moments landscape analysis that we use to discover where to play. Now, as Greg said, not all moments really matter. You know, you look at the moment for pizza eating, some moments may not matter to the brand, but others could be very, very important. So it depends on your objectives, whether you're seeking to nudge or disrupt. So consider this bubble chart where the size of the bubble is the size of a moment with regard to the number of consumers in a given moment. And the locations across this bubble chart of each moment are the respective measures of strength of habits and the frequency or the velocity of those consumers having routines in these moments. So if you're seeking to disrupt, you want to play in the biggest moments where the size of habit is weakest, so you can more easily disrupt, and the velocity of the routine is high. And so the upper right-hand quadrant of this bubble chart. However, if you're seeking to nudge, you want to focus on existing users and having them keep doing what they've been doing all along to acquire perhaps new relationships in moments where they've been frequenting or might frequent more so in the future. So the lower left hand part of this quadrant, if you want to grow a moment, or the lower right hand quadrant if you want to maintain. So not all moments matter, but some really do matter. And by focusing on those, it leads to the question of, now, how do you win those moments? So selecting these leads to discovery of how to play to win. This requires, I think, 2 additional foundational insights. The first is getting into what I like to call aspirational compass type of study. It involves consumer research into what are the consumer's unmet aspirations or desires, as well as what are their pains or disgusts that they are seeking to alleviate or avoid. And this leads to providing you with the empathy that we're talking about with, I was talking about with Greg. You know, this empathy is important in considering how to innovate. The second foundational insight for knowing how to play to win comes from classical product benchmarking, or perhaps benchmarking with a twist, so to speak. And that is to discover how the competitive set is or is not playing to address these desires and pains that are out in the marketplace. So, for instance, if no competitor exists to be able to provide these against these unmet desires or pains, you have discovered what we like to call behavioral white space. So many product benchmarking studies are conducted blind, and devoid of context. While, certainly there's some situations I think that makes sense to use this approach, going with a blind, so to speak, benchmarking study, you're not able to provide very rich assessments of behavioral white space because you just don't have the context to do that. So maybe product white space is it may be that it's really good when you want to, if you're priming people in moments and you're looking into only the sensory hedonic drivers. Maybe there's some situations where you can test products blind. But the point is that I'm trying to say is if we have found that conducting benchmarking within the context of moments, such as in a home use test or fully branded, to be so much richer in information to provide insights for strategy. All right, so here's an example. We work with a US national cheese brand to help them improve their cheese innovation process and to build their innovation pipeline. Now, this company were seeking to replace an old process that they were conducting annual research to discover product white space. And we conducted a moments landscape and aspirational compass study to discover for them behavioral white space. And this really helped them a lot. We also facilitated co-creation studies with their innovation team and consumers to design some early stage ideas that were outcomes to better help them understand how to win in these specific moments that they selected. And so this made them ready so that they had more opportunities to respond to the marketplace with this sort of pipeline of new ideas, such that, for instance, if a retail partner came to them asking for a new cheese product for, let's say, a deli section in a retail, they could respond really quickly. It helped them be more ready, but also to more efficiently plan for resource allocations. So this product strategy has given them focus and flexibility through foresight to pick from that pipeline when the time is right. Now, product strategy, such as this example, leads to a wide range of tactics that are all moment-based. For example, if you're doing product research, so there's a lot of tactics that evolve out of strategy. Now, Simon mentioned that consumers are being more irrational, and Greg picked up on this as well. What this means in product research is that you need to design your products for the irrational, or what I like to call the implicit mind. And as Greg showed, the implicit mind is highly influenced by context. And taking a moments-based approach means that you focus your product development on not just specific consumers, but on consumers in the context of target moments of use. This thinking leads to three important tactics. The first is designing products that are familiar with a twist in ways that fulfill your behavioral white space, these desires that are unfulfilled yet, or to alleviate any disgust. The second is to go beyond liking by priming participants into moments of use or placing people into those moments of use. Design products where it is about the cues that you want to build into products that signal these benefits that are that twist. And third, by using these two product tactics, it leads to the design of, I believe, more memorable, more emotionally impactful, and rewarding product experiences. So, for example, we conducted some co-design sessions for Campbell's to accelerate their product innovation process so they can more quickly commercialize some soups that they were targeting. So in a 3-day session with consumers and their innovation team, we primed people into their soup moments, and then we had them assess a variety of prototypes against a consumer-ready product concept. And then over these 3 days, the chefs were busy in the back room co-creating soups and rapidly iterating and learning from the responses from these consumer participants as they were primed into their relevant moments of use. Now, this iterative learning process resulted in a line of 3 products and a full set of product specs for the product, and we also did it for the packaging. And that enabled for commercialization in just 7 months. The second type of tactic that comes from strategy, I believe, and this moments-based approach are those involved in brand design for the implicit mind. So instead of moments of use, these are moments of brand impressions. However, the top moment that I can think of to make a great impression about the brand is certainly during moments of use. However, moments of use are moments of brand impressions only when you design what I like to call a sensory fingerprint for the brand. Now, brand fingerprints like this are sensory qualities that are designed into every SKU for the brand. And so when implemented as a brand tactic, it establishes and reinforces associations between the brand and the product reward. So this helps build and reinforce these relationships with brand fans, and it creates alignment between the right side and the left side of this flywheel, between the product and the brand. Now, going back to the Campbell's case study, we developed a clear brand fingerprint for this, what was a new brand and the new line of soups. And so this fingerprint was established by building in sensory qualities that in the future could become cues, signaling the brand equity through repeated moments of use. So in this case, we designed specific sensory guardrails and product qualities for the line of products that was intended to be associated with, for example, soup colors with the equity value of vibrancy, or specific types of amounts of vegetables for generous, or flavor intensity that align with deliciousness, or degrees of thickness with hearty and degrees and complexity with homemade. And we also applied the same thinking to the design of the package. So this leads to the upper left-hand quadrant of the habit flywheel, and the last of our 8 points of intervention. In marketing activation moments, marketing tactics can be moments-based when they are based on trust, which is established over time by the brand saying what it will do and doing what it will say. Once trust is established, your messaging and packaging can be designed to trigger routines that build momentum for your brand. However, the effectiveness of messaging and packaging design depends greatly on the context for when those packages are viewed and when messages are discovered for effective market activation in these moments. So it is essential that you do your homework through research to understand the relationship between context and activation through messaging and package design. And this leads to the final case study. And I'd like to discuss this briefly, but I'd like you to point you to, please check out the Insights Now website, where it's packed with these examples in a lot more detail. We applied this moments-based approach to help Tofurkey design a new deli slice product and the packaging for it for in-store context for 2 different types of shelf sets. One shelf set was in the deli meat section next to meat products like turkey slices and things like that. The other was in the natural food section next to other like vegetarian products. And we found a minimally designed package to actually increase lift choice in both shopping moments for both of these different types of shopping moments. Whereas a package design that had, a box with plastic in it, was not minimally designed, did not lift choice against the competition in the vegetarian section, in the natural food section, but it did very well next to the other meat products. So this really helped them decide which package design to go with, and one that would fit these different contexts. So again, check out the Insights Now website, because there's other case studies and more details on this case study, which I think is really fabulous. So we've covered a lot today, that to win in moments that matter, you need to think differently. Using this habit flywheel as a metaphor, I tried to explain some different ways that you can build momentum across these 8 points of intervention, by creating strategy first to know what moments to play or how to play to win these moments. And by generating foundational insights for your brands in moments of need, strategy leads to alignment between the product on that right side and the left, which is more brand and marketing, to, tackle a lot of the challenges that many companies have. Now, this alignment has always been something we found over the years as an issue for a lot of companies, especially companies that are large and maybe siloed. So while the case studies we use today were food moments and food specific, this moments-based approach, it applies equally well for brands playing in non-food products such as personal care, beauty care, healthcare, nutritional, or pet care moments. Further, this strategy leads to moment-specific, tactics supporting the design of products for the implicit mind in moments of use for the product development and product design, as well as for sensory brand fingerprints to generate better brand impressions that lead to relationship building with brand fans. And finally, getting into these moments that matter for marketing activation, well, say for instance, shopping or people searching online or sharing their experiences, it leads to opportunities to learn about how to drive the flywheel around and build brand momentum. And these marketing tactics require doing your homework into how you can bring context, understand how context impacts your ability to trigger routines and choices, through messaging and package design. And further, it shows how important it is to build trust with your brands over time, because it takes time to continue to say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say. So finally, as Simon mentioned, at the start of the pandemic, a lot changed. People have become more irrational, perhaps fueled by all sorts of global disruptors to their lives that led to heightened volatility and uncertainty in markets. And this requires us to think differently, and if we're going to want to innovate better. As innovation is the lifeblood of companies, consumer insights functions are being asked to help these leaders keep pace with this consumer choice, whether it is through product strategy or scenario planning, or just doing better research by getting into moments that matter. And at Insights Now, we're all passionate about our quest to be enablers of innovation for in these times of change. It's really difficult. We understand that. And working in partnership with the consumer insights teams that we get to work with, we believe that we are collectively supporting and fostering these visions of these product leaders to overcome some of the greatest challenges of our time. We like to think about it as creating a cleaner, healthier, and happier world. So as Greg said, moments are foundational to understanding this consumer irrationality. And so is scenario planning to make yourself ready to pivot in the face of change, to be prepared to pull from your innovation pipeline that you have now ready to go with ideas fitting moments of opportunity that matter, to drive empathy and to drive your innovation to create a better world, for people struggling in their lives, and to respond from change itself. So I hope you've enjoyed or taken something away from these 3 initial talks by Simon and Greg and myself. Now we all get to listen to I think the highlight of the day as Lucy Davison brings everything together to talk about why brands matter more than ever.
Thank you very much, Dave. Just going to advance a little bit there. So that was super interesting, and I really enjoyed hearing all about that. And I'm really here to talk to you about what all that means for Insights Now as a brand. And how can we keep the Insights Now brand strong in this sort of stormy and unpredictable environment that we're all working in. So as we've just heard, it's all about making the connection in the moment. We've heard about how the role of consumer insights has changed, and we really need to understand behavior. And it's all about understanding that behavior and applying that to product research, which I think is really interesting because in my experience, most of the behavioral work, most of the behavioral research work that I've come across in the past has been very much focused on brand and communication, and actually not really about the connection between the two and bridging that gap between product and brand, which is super important. And I think it's very interesting that Insights Now is rounding that out to the whole experience. And then that Insights Now has this framework of moments about making that close emotional connection with consumers, that spark. That's why I thought of God and Adam to illustrate this, so that you can really, really make that connection and understand people in depth. So what we're trying to do effectively is create salience in the mind of the consumer. And for Insights Now, that means creating salience in the mind of the customer. So we're trying to think about how to apply this consumer world to the world of business marketing, and to think about how the customer responds. The customer is a human being, creating long-term memory responses in the mind of customers so they can recognize and understand and think about the brand in the moment, in the key moment when they're thinking about, who they want to work with. So I'm sure many of you will be aware of the work done by Binet and Field for the IPA, The Long and the Short of It, which looked at how to maximize your investment in marketing. And it demonstrated that for marketing to be most effective, you should spend 60% of your budget on building long-term brand connections and 40% of it on tactical digital marketing activations. So we're thinking 60% brand and 40% tactical, less strategic. The point about this is it was all done in a consumer environment. It was looking at consumer advertising and the effectiveness of marketing in that context. So what about a B2B environment where you have business people making decisions, rational decisions? Well, they're not. Interestingly enough, some more recent work by Ehrenberg Bass came up with this 95-5 rule, whereby the research they did revealed that at any given moment in time, 95% of your target audience is not in the market to buy. So if you're not creating long-term salience in the mind of that 95%, in the 5% of the time when they are in the market to buy, they're not going to think of you. And interestingly enough, in a kind of recession or a volatile environment, it's similar to the sort of situation we're in at the moment, and then some of the stuff that Simon described, that 5% drops to just 1%. So we need to be very aware of the fact that if we're going to be marketing ourselves as a business, we need to be focusing on the 99% of people who aren't there to buy at that point. They're going to be buying from you in the future. You know, the whole point about marketing is it creates the need in the future. So you need to be creating long-term mental salience in the mind of the customer. I then also came across another piece of research which slightly blew my mind, which was that this is from the Harvard Business Review, and it was research done by Bain and Google. When people in a B2B environment are looking for partners, vendors, people to work with, they make a list. 80 to 90% of people make a list before they start their research process. And interestingly enough, when it comes to the final decision, 90% of the time, they're going to pick someone from that initial list. So there's the list they've made before they've gone out and had any conversations with their colleagues or done any online research or started looking people up or having phone calls or reading articles or going to events or checking out their, their contacts list. All of that is done from the top of the head, and 90% of the time they're going to pick someone from the initial list that they made. So again, it makes it even more important that we need to be thinking about making those strong emotional connections with customers and building that long-term salience in the mind. So I like to call this super salience. So that's about creating a set of cues and clear messages and values which people really strongly recognize, so that you and your customers can look each other in the eye and recognize and have a clear understanding of each other's values and know you're going to be able to work together effectively. So what does all that mean for Insights Now, for the Insights Now brand? Well, we've learned a lot about how the consumer insights function has changed and the challenges that have been faced. We've learned a lot about behavior, how behavior is key, and how to apply behavior to product research and create insights that apply to both product and brand to bring it all together. So we wanted to apply that thinking at Keen as Mustard, working with Insights Now. We wanted to apply that thinking to the brand for Insights Now. And what we want to do was really tell a story. It's not advancing. Doesn't appear to be advancing anymore. Gone too far now. Sorry, my advance button wasn't advancing. So we're trying to tell an engaging story for Insights Now, which is really resonant and of the moment. So we worked over the last few months, and we've come up with a story which is all about connecting product and brand strategy, aligning the two to create experience people love. And it's about bridging that gap. And it's all based on that moments-based behavioral framework to help the client, the visionary product leaders, activate the insights that they have and align the product and brand strategy. Ultimately, wanting to build a healthier and happier world, to create products that people really love and brands that they really, really engage with. So that's what we came up with as a story. And then we started looking at Insights Now itself and the identity and what we can do with that to make sure it was really in the moment and relevant now. So Insights Now is often referred to as IN because it's obviously the acronym. And that was great because in means a lot and is incredibly relevant for Insights Now. So in means current, relevant, and characteristic of a trend, which is brilliant because that's exactly, you know, what we do. It's effectively a proposition. So it's really good to use that to describe the business we're in. But IN is also the first letters of the word inspiration, the first letters of the word innovation, and it also leads us into the moment, in the moment. So we really thought that to focus on IN would be really important for the Insights Now brand. Then, of course, we do also want to make sure that we refer to the framework. It's super important, and each point within that framework. So we used this circle, and we thought we must use that within the identity. But then we thought, okay, we've got the circle and we've got the thing, but really what you need is something that really shouts innovation, that shouts an innovative moment. So we came to the idea of using an exclamation mark in the circle because it's something new, it's something fresh, something surprising, something different. So we combined that flywheel with the exclamation mark. And finally, we combined it with a really lovely warm magenta color, which was all about the passion and warmth of the company and its values and the people who work in the company. So we felt it was really important to get something that was really warm and colorful. So that all comes together into the new visual identity that you see here, with the addition of a tagline, which you will have realized is built up to it, was inspire, innovate, and win. So this is what you're going to see of Insights Now. This is how it's going to change, and this is what it's going to be. You're going to see this on the website. In fact, if you go and look at the website now, it's already changed. You're going to see this in the materials that you receive, all the communications, everything that comes out of Insights Now moving forward. So I hope that was a nice build to a little reveal at the very end. And I'll hand it back to Dave for any questions.
Yeah, it's thank you, Lucy, because it's been a great pleasure to work with you and your team in putting together, you know, because you don't just do a brand rebranding and launch as we're doing today just out of thin air, just to do it for, you know, it really, it's about the meaning, about the purpose, you know, that we live, and you've captured the essence of that really well. But anyways, the key, that what I like to do is now is to address any questions. Anybody?
There are some questions in the Q&A. Dave, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. So
some of those.
So let's pick. I'm going to go is one of the questions is about is this framework generalizable for all CPG or specific only to food and beverage? And I think I answered that because very, very, you know, consumer behavior with regard to consumer packaged goods has, you know, a lot of commonalities. So we work across, you know, not just food and beverage, but a lot of other sectors. And I'm amazed to see the commonalities amongst them all, you know. So Greg, I don't know if you want any comments to that.
Certainly. I mean, the basic behavioral foundations behind that framework apply to basically any sequence where your goal is to, you know, drive innovation towards enhancing a person's behavior, getting a person disrupted or nudged. So that habit flywheel process, that framework process, when we recraft it, there's a lot of habit cycles that exist out there. But when we recrafted that one, we were specifically looking at people who do product innovation. So if you're looking at any type of a product, be it food, beverage, be it personal care, home care, be it literally any type of a product that you're building, that framework then is much more salient, if you will, as to how to drive behavior forward, as opposed to, say, maybe a sociological thing like quitting smoking.
Yep. So here's
very generalizable.
something that just came in. We got several, but this one looks really interesting. Knowing logic is slow and intuition is fast. What is your recommendation on a test method for package format to capture the emotional decisions making that occurs in the moment? Okay, so looking to capture behavioral aspects of their testing. Emotions are hard to capture, as well. So, Greg?
Sure. Yeah. This is where you definitely want to get yourself some implicit tools built in. And one of the things that you want to be able to think about in terms of packaging is what are all the contexts it's going to live and breathe in? And if you're trying to look at packaging on shelf, if you're looking at packaging in your refrigerator, if you're looking at packaging in all those different contexts, you've got to take a look at what's the setting that you're trying to find the package in, and what are you trying to learn about a person's behavior as it relates to that packaging, right? So for instance, we've doing a lot of work on sustainability. So are there packaging cues that cue the person, this is a sustainable packaging, package, yes or no, that may certainly align with one of their goals or ideals. That's quite a bit different task than, hey, what's my emotional reaction to how the package physically works? How easy is it to open? How do I manipulate? How confusing or not confusing are the directions? You name it. So part of it is getting the right setting and the context for your assessments. The second part is implicit testing. So with implicit testing, what we do when we're looking at emotions and packaging work is we use projective exercises. So you want to be able to use some of those classic psychologies of being able to project your emotions on an image and then using that image to drive that emotional reaction. What's an implicit fast reaction versus that explicit more thought out? And then you want to just focus on those emotions that people didn't go, yeah, I think I feel bored, or I think it's good. You actually want to get those implicit reactions. So we've got a great technique for that. A lot of good webinars on that topic that we've given as well. But if you want to reach out and have a one-on-one with that, I was glad to do that with you.
Yeah, it's a great methodology, and it's based on a way that part of human brain of transferring your emotions to an object, like an image that captures your experience, and then you re-show that and reprime, and it's a reverse prime technique so that people can then respond to what were their feelings. But it's a great question that someone's asked here. Another one is would a measure of memorable should liking and satisfaction be considered obsolete metrics?
Certainly, I think I think what we have to ask ourselves is how well is liking and satisfaction helping us understand the behavior? If we're saying, hey, people are super irrational because they like it but don't buy it, maybe the irrationality part isn't the right answer. Maybe the measure you're using to say they're irrational could be the wrong measure. And I think that's a key. Also, liking outside of context changes. You put people in different contexts and their liking changes dramatically.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, super.
All right. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Carrie.
I was just going to say thank you all. We are at time, but you know how to contact us. Visit insightsnow.com. Many ways for you to easily ping us, and we are happy to follow up with your additional questions. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to our speakers and to our audience. Great session today. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. Bye.
Bye.